Hello and welcome to another episode of Speed Bumps with Charlie Kimball. I'm your host, Charlie Kimball, and today I'm really excited to have a guest who knows a thing or two about pushing through obstacles both on and off the racetrack. Joining us is none other than Will Power, one of the top drivers in IndyCar history and a master at turning setbacks and challenges into comebacks. Will's career is a story of grit and determination, from battling injuries and tough seasons to coming back stronger and becoming IndyCar's most successful qualifier and the champion of the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500, not to mention a two-time IndyCar Series champion. He's faced more than his fair share of challenges, but what makes his story so compelling is how he's navigated those tough times with perseverance and a laser-focused attitude. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the highs and lows of Will's journey, talk about the mental toughness it takes to keep going when the going gets tough, and explore what it really means to overcome challenges in one of the most demanding sports in the world. Will, thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's so am I, Charlie. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So I want to go back to you growing up in Australia. I don't know if people can tell from your accent, you're not from here in the States. You grew up in Toowoomba in Queensland, Australia, and you started racing cars and go-karts there, but then you moved to Europe, and the opportunity to go continue your racing career in Europe beckoned. What was that like? What was the biggest challenge you faced leaving home and going and racing in a whole different world? I mean, Australia and Europe are totally different worlds.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, in motorsport, anyone who has tried to make it to the top in motorsport understands that you've got to find a lot of money, because all the junior categories that lead to, series like the IndyCar, Formula One, NASCAR, any of those top tier series, you're paying anything under that, like any of the categories, the ladder system, you would say, leading to that. So you've got to find, to go straight up, I had to find, if I remember correctly, it was over 300,000 pounds. And at that time, that was close to 600,000 Australian, I think. It might have even been a bit more because the pound was so strong. So my dad actually sold a couple of rental houses he had behind his business. He had a small business. He bought the houses behind it. He sold those to fund that. Partly to fund it. It wasn't enough to fund it all. So yeah, a lot of, I had no pressure, but I felt bad that they were taking some of their own. My parents were selling sort of retirement stuff, and for me to go racing. My dad always had a lot of faith in me that I would make it, I guess. I don't know what he thought. I don't know. I was just shocked he did it. Not shocked, but just that's a big step when you haven't got millions and millions of dollars. It just is to fund your son's career, or just that I guess big step, leaving Australia, going to Europe, trying to make it to Formula One. Just everything that goes with it. It's expensive. The living costs, you got to find an apartment, you got to pay the rent, food. It's not like you're working, you're just there, turn up there, and keep fit and go to the team a couple of times a week and race. The most expensive part of it. So finding the funds, I would say every Christmas as I was coming up that ladder was very stressful for me, because I never knew what I was doing the next year. And that was certainly the case that year. It was sort of I think we made it halfway through the season, or 6 races, and then ran out of money. And then I was able to find it was actually Australian Motorsport Foundation helped me out and gave me some money. And then I drove for Fortec for the rest of that season, did pretty well. Then you got to turn up again the next year with another full budget. That was the tough thing. Never know if you're going to be able to race the next race at times because you're waiting for money. And then also at Christmas, like, what am I doing the next year? Put all this work in. But you think about it, you go from go-karts to cars to... at that point, you've done a lot of racing up to that point. So there's been a lot of hard work and effort and money put into it at that point. So to just sort of, Christmas time, well, that's it. We've done all this work, and I'm just going to go back, to working as a canvas goods manufacturer in Toowoomba. But you look back on it, it's certainly real character building stuff. It's just a part. The journey's great. As stressful as it is at the time, it's just the way it is. You learn from it. I kind of feel like if you were very wealthy and were able to fund yourself, or have a family that could fund you all the way through, there wouldn't be as much satisfaction when you did make it, I don't think.
And so when you do that, right, you get success. And I totally recognize that sensation of Christmas being stressful. Everyone's like, oh, Christmas is this time of joy. And when you don't know where you're racing next year, or if the sponsors are going to come through, or the team, I mean, I've always felt like it was building a 3D puzzle, and the pieces kept changing because you're talking about budget, you're talking about team, You're talking about where you want to race, all those different things. And it's so stressful, but you get through it, right? You get back to the racetrack, and you have that pressure of your parents selling houses to fund your racing, and you're a world apart, right? You're in Europe, home is Australia. And then you come to the US, you get a chance to race in the Champ Car back home in Australia, and it leads to more of a full-time ride with, I believe it was with Derek Walker and Team Australia. And you're doing well, like you're doing really well. You're podiuming, you're winning at Las Vegas, things like that. And then the IRL Champ Car merger comes together, and Team Australia is not going to run in that series anymore. And again, you're back to that Christmas of uncertainty. How did you keep the faith at that moment? Were you having conversations with other people where you'd end up? What does that look like?
Well, that was very stressful. I just finished, like you said, I raced 2006 was rookie winner. And in 2007, I somewhat fought for the championship, but I ended up fourth. Pole positions, a couple of wins. It was a fun series. It really was. It was a series that I really enjoyed because there's all road and street courses. The car was a real beast, so it's super. A lot of horsepower. It was light, a lot of downforce. It was actually still one of the most enjoyable cars I've driven. Most fun, biggest beast of a car, I would say, that Champ Car was. And then you had obviously IndyCar, which is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indy 500. Sort of that series is built around that, and you had Champ Car that was just road and street courses, sort of the remnants of what kart was. And there'd always been talk about them merging back together ever since I've been there. I say ever since, but in the 2 years that I've been racing Champ Car, we always thought it would be great if they merged together. And that happened in 2008. But as a consequence, I can't remember how they exactly played out, but Walker Racing had the Team Australia sponsorship. What happened was Team Australia, Craig Gore, who was the person that created Team Australia, had done a deal with Kevin Kalkoven, who owned KB Racing, and they were going to field a car there. And so Derek Walker was going to miss out. And I was pretty close with Derek, and my girlfriend at the time, wife now, Liz, worked for him, and he actually got me to sign a contract that I can't remember what the contract was, but ultimately it was like he could stop me going from, this is after he knew what was happening. I think it was last little bit of desperation for him, which I understand. And I told Craig that, and then Craig Gore, and he just lost his mind. He said, that's it, your career's over, you just screwed yourself, so on and so on. And so I was like, oh man. I actually called Derek, said Craig told me this, but Derek wasn't going to hold me that contract. So anyway, I ended up driving for KB, which was what we called a transition team. They were a team that went from Champ Car to, all the IRL or IndyCar stayed the same, which is predominantly ovals. And then we bought Champ Car over, or we bought what that series, the car that series used, the engine, and raced on their tracks, and added a couple of street courses from Champ Car. So it was a very tough year, man. I'd never raced ovals. I'd done one oval, actually, Milwaukee. Had never done a super speedway or anything like that. So, most of these ovals were super speedways. It was pack racing. So that meant that, it really didn't require that much talent. Required more like bravery, to be honest. Like not good bravery either, stupidity in a way that.
Yeah.
Because you drive out of the pits, you used to be wide open on the white line. Like there wasn't really, the car was so stuck with downforce. Yeah, downforce is like people listening down. Yeah, you see on IndyCars they have wings. Well, they're like upside down plane wings. The faster you go, the more it sucks it to the ground. More downforce. They had a lot of that, so you're just stuck. So the car wasn't moving around or sliding, so you weren't really skillfully driving, and you just had to be, you're just in this pack of cars, so like NASCAR Talladega, and extremely dangerous and not enjoyable. I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, I got into it at the end. I did. It wasn't, there was a skill in side drafting where you ran in the dirty wake and that sort of thing, but at huge risk, to be honest, that close. But yeah, being a transition team, we just didn't know. We just didn't have all the development that had been done on those cars. We didn't know how to set them up. We didn't know oval, so it was a big struggle. It was a very tough year. I went from 07 thinking going into 08 we have a great shot at winning a championship in Champ Car to, man, this is like a whole new thing for me, a different car. Just a bad year all up. Even on road courses I was super quick, but then I'd just be trying too hard in qualifying and bend it and crash and not qualify well. So, that was looking like the end of my career. I remember emailing at the end of 08. I had a bad year. I did go, when we went to Australia, went racing in Australia, I did qualify on pole, and was extremely fast. But once again, I crashed while leading by a mile. And my last oval race in the IRL was pretty good too. I finished like fourth or fifth, which was my highest oval finish ever at that point. And I finished Indianapolis as well, which was a big deal. Finished at 13th after a really rough month, which was, was good actually. Finished there.
Your first Indy 500, you finished 13th? With
first Indy 500, yeah.
So we have that in common. I finished my first Indy 500 in 13th. Just years after you.
You would have been, not long after, because it's in that same style of car. But I thought that was it for me, because Team Australia was not going to continue because they decided they're not going back to Australia with the series. That was a big hit. So I was like, this is it, man. I'm out. I actually emailed a supercar team, I think. I emailed Ross Stone. I was going to go back, try to get a ride supercar. I was like, pretty much resigned to the fact that either go back, try getting V8 supercar in Australia, or just work, I guess. And Elio Castroneves, I remember being at home and Lizzie and my girlfriend said, Elio Castroneves just got arrested in Road Atlanta. And he was the driver for Penske, which was the best team in the series. I think Derek Walker was actually at that race. And Liz said, or we messaged, said, hey, go see Roger Penske and, see what's going on.
So that first contact with Roger and Penske Racing came from Liz to Derek to Penske to figure out what Elio's situation was.
Yeah, well, Roger actually had introduced himself at the very first race of my first race in the new IndyCar, the merged IndyCar at Homestead. I think we were in qualifying line, and he sort of shook my hand and said, it's nice to meet you. Derek Walker said some great things about you, which was awesome, because Derek used to work for Roger. Derek used to run his team, so he knew Roger very well. So I actually ended up calling Tim Cindric, I think, at some point in that off-season or after Australia, and said, hey, I'm free next year, I got nothing. And he immediately said, oh, okay, we'll have to get you up to meet Roger. So for them to say that immediately says that must have been talking about, what drivers will we look at? And I'd had a couple of very fast qualifying. Obviously Australia would have helped, leading by a mile there, finishing fourth on that oval at the end. So, I think, and also at the very beginning of the year, they saw at St. Pete, I did the quickest lap of the weekend in qualifying. So I think they probably were wondering about me a little bit, because just knowing them now, but they showed me the list of drivers when I went to meet with Roger that, hey, this is who you're up against. It's like Marco, who was it? Marco, Justin Wilson, I think Oral Serbia might have been there, but I can't remember. It's Vital Mirrors. There's some big names that were like, and you got to beat out some big names here, to get chance to the seat. But yeah, I just said to him, look, I don't care, because they said, this isn't a full this way. If Elliot gets acquitted, you won't have a full-time seat. But ultimately, I just said I don't care. I just want to get a foot in the door and show you what I can do.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of a great career, to be honest. Like, that was the beginning. That was like, what are the chances? Just about out of a ride. Yeah, I remember my wife saying, because I'd signed a contract to do A1 GP. She goes, but what if a seat at Ganassi or Penske come up? And I said, that will never happen, Liz. That will never happen. Are you crazy? I need to sign this contract. Yeah, I can get paid to do A1 GP. She's like, you shouldn't. And I actually ended up getting out of the contract crazily. And then that Elliot thing happened, which just blows my mind that Liz actually said that. Like, what are the chances that would happen? But anyway, I got a foot in the door.
Probably not the last time you have told Liz she was going to be wrong and she turns out to be right. Because I'm married. I know it happens all the time.
You know that, man. Oh, my God. I won't let you forget it either.
But then, like 2009, right? The season goes pretty well. Elio gets acquitted, comes back. They continue to run the car for you. Am I correct in that?
Basically, the deal was I signed a contract with them, and I think it just sort of a bit of testing. So I think it was like 2 or 3 test days. But if Elio gets acquitted, you're out. So start of the season, I went to those test days, which actually the first 2 test days were disasters. The first one went out straight away. First time ever in a Penske car, I went to hit the brake pedal, and they had a very small master cylinder, so a very soft pedal with a lot of power. So it didn't take much to press it. Like, it was a soft pedal, and I was used to I had a big left foot braking foot. I was used to big pressure from Champ Car, and just destroyed the set of tires straight out the box, man. First braking zone, boom. I'm like, oh my God, like, come in. So I just ruined I said, yeah, and the seat didn't fit, and the car was so uncomfortable, like, handling wise. So they'd actually trimmed out from the previous test there when there'd been a lot of rubber down. So there's a lot of grip, and it wasn't a nice car to drive. It was very uncomfortable, very, so it didn't go well. The next test was at Homestead, which is a, IRL wide open oval. And I'm like, well, Penske on oval, this is going to be great. It was so nervous and uncomfortable. I couldn't even go flat, man. And I said, well, can Briscoe get in my car and feel it out? I don't feel very, it feels really uncomfortable. Briscoe got in and went around, went flat. And I'm like, yeah, not good. And I was really sick too, actually, because I've got a bloody cold or some sort of flu, and didn't tell that. The third test, Barber finally put it together, was P1, and by a bit too, put a big lap up. So I was like, phew, that saves me for another day. Because at that point, Tim told me, he said, at that point, those first 2 tests, he called Roger and said, I don't think this is your guy, Roger. I think, I think we need to be looking elsewhere. And luckily they gave me that third test, and I was extremely far. Like, I was half second clear of the field, I think. Which helped a lot. And Roger actually called and said, congratulations on winning the test, sort of thing. Like, that was what.
So he was paying attention, like, not just checking in with Tim, but paying attention to the lap times and seeing how you were developing, because they knew that, they had some confidence that you had the speed, right? They wouldn't have signed you for those tests otherwise.
Oh, yeah. They must have been, they would have seen, just knowing now, like, if a young driver or a new driver rocks up as like P1 in some practices, or P1 in qualifying ones, or runs at the front for a bit, not necessarily like just dominating, winning. I know they watch those guys. It's like when Newgarden just dominated, he'd been just a typical young driver. Then one day he just rocked up and dominated Iowa. And then Roger's like, I want that guy. I want it. And Montoya wasn't performing that well at that time. And that was it, man. Like, so that would have happened at Australia. Yeah, Roger, it wasn't actually down there, but you would have seen guy on pole leading by a mile, but then crashes. But then, I'd say that's why when I called them, they were like, "Well, we'll get you up to meet Roger," and so on and so on. And Derek actually helped me out in that selection because Tim called him and said I just couldn't get a feel for Will because I was so nervous. Yeah, I was very shy back then. I was very, very shy, hard to talk to. So they didn't get much from me. And called Derek to, say, hey, just give us a bit of insight on this guy. And obviously Derek helped me out there and convinced them that I'd be a good guy, good for the team, good driver, and so on and so on. But that was interesting times. Yeah. And 2009, like you said, I was getting back to your original question. Sorry. I did those 3 tests. Then I raced the first race, finished 6th. Then I poled it at Long Beach. And actually the day before I pulled in the pits, I was P1. They said the good news is you're P1. Bad news is that Elio just got acquitted and he's flying here. So you're out. But we bought another car for you and a team and a crew. You'll be at the back of the pit lane and you'll run from there. And in that spare car they brought along, I qualified on pole, so I out qualified my teammates and finished there. Both of my teammates finished second. We didn't have a radio, otherwise we could have actually won the race. They just forgot to plug the radio in the beginning, so we didn't really have any strategy. So that was a start. That was like, okay.
Whoa. Well, let's hold on a second. Let's circle back to that. That was a start. So you go out, you're fastest in practice, you come in, the teammate that you're filling in for is on a plane to come get in the seat you've just gone quickest with. They pull a spare car and team kind of out of thin air, and you go out and just about win the race with no radio and no strategy. That's not a start, Will. That's incredibly impressive.
It was what had to happen, to be honest, to keep my foot in that door. Because remember, I finished 6th at the first race. Long Beach was the second race. I finished second there. I think I was actually leading the championship. And I called Tim after that, said, man, can you just I think at that point, I can't remember what they promised me. I think they promised me up till Indianapolis. At that Long Beach race, and you can race at Indy. And there was a oval before Indy. It was Kansas. And I called, oh man, I'm leading the championship. Can you run me? No, sorry. Look, we can't. We got the 2 cars. And that was that. And so Indy was going to be my last race for them. I finished, I think I was second coming into the last pit stop. And then I must have finished something like 4th or 5th and finished the race. No crash. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Kind of got out of the car and was like kind of depressed. Like, that was my last race, man. What am I going to do now? But I'd done a little bit, almost, I'd done enough to be, maybe another team will look at me, But Roger said, Roger wants to meet you at his bus because they won that race that year. It was Elio won in 2009. Yeah, Roger said, on Monday, I'd like to meet with you, come see us. And he said, look, we're going to give you another 6 races, this, and this, and this. I was like, oh my God, man.
Here we go.
How cool is that? Calling your girlfriend when you get out of there. 6 more races for Penske, which, turned out in general, I would out-qualify my teammates. And I helped Briscoe in Toronto, just sat behind him in 3rd. Could have easily passed him and then gone and attacked Dario, who was leading at the time. And then just, it was absolute team play. I was keeping come on the radio. So just tell Ryan not to worry. I'm not going to try pass him. I'll just hold everyone up because he actually had an issue. And then won Edmonton, which is a big deal. And then broke my back in a bad accident at Sonoma.
So I wanted to talk about that because you do this. You've got your foot fully in the door at Penske Racing. You go out, have a great Indy 500. You get 6 more races. You win at Edmonton. I remember that race, watching that race. That was my first year in Indy Lights. And then you go to Sonoma. We're racing there as well, I believe, in Indy Lights. Another car crashes at the top of the hill. Very little notice to you that there's a car sitting sideways, and you have a crash and break your back. You medevaced out of the racetrack. Like, once you know you're going to have to rehab and you're going to be okay, right? You're still going to be able to walk. Everything. Where does your head go on the racing side? Right away, are you calling Tim and Roger saying, hey, I'm going to be better than ever. I'm going to be stronger. How do you focus to get back in the car?
I mean, honestly, when it happened, oh, the pain, the worst pain I'd ever felt. But anyway, once they got me out of there and in the helicopter, I thought that's it, man. Career's over. Yeah, in hospital. Yep, you got a broken back. I thought that's, game over again. But Greg Penske came. I think Roger called. I can't remember if Roger called. Roger didn't come. Obviously, he's so busy, but Greg Penske came. I think Roger called and said, just get better, don't worry, we'll have something for you. That was pretty bloody awesome, man. Because I thought I thought that's it. I'm not, but he said, just recover. Yeah, we'll help you out. He set his plane, flying back to Indianapolis, and, it took the sort of 6 months to, 3 months really, but then 6 months to fully get back to where I needed to be.
Did it help having that comment from Roger in the back of your brain saying, hey, just get better, we've got something for you? You go, hey, I have something to work for here, right? Yeah. I have a reason to
massively, man. Yeah. Massively. At that point in your career, as you know, as a driver, when Roger Penske says, we got something, you're going to have some races, and you're going to be in a great car, and you're going to have a chance to show what you can do again. So it's just bloody fantastic. And I can't remember when they told me I'd have a full-time ride, because I think I went to the NASCAR race that year, the Charlotte NASCAR race, and I think that's where Roger might say, you have full-time, we got Verizon. That was a big, man, getting a full-time ride for Penske was just blew my mind. That was the first Christmas ever that I knew. Oh, no. 2009, I knew what I was doing. Like the day before I flew back to Australia, they called me in 2009, said, well, it's Roger Penske, Tim Cindric, you've got that, we're going to give you the ride. So I was like, and Liz was asleep on the couch. I thought it was over at that point too, because they hadn't called me. I was about to leave for Australia. I was like, I don't know, one of the other guys got it. But then when I got the full-time ride, you've got a full-time ride, you're going to be paid, and you're going to drive for Penske. Man, that's a pretty cool off-season to be motivated and just work your ass off to turn up ready to go.
It's funny, I remember, I'm sure you saying, okay, like Liz was asleep, like you knew exactly that moment. You can still see and live that moment. For me, it was Labor Day weekend. I think it was the Monday of Labor Day. And I got a call from my sponsor at the time, Novo Nordisk, and said, hey, we're going to do this deal in IndyCar. You're going to have a full-time IndyCar ride. Like, go celebrate, and then tomorrow go to work. And I got the call, and before I picked it up, I look at Kathleen, my wife, and go, hey, this is them. Like, this could be a yay or nay thing, right? And I remember that moment, and I remember Christmas being a lot less stressful.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know. You would know the exact feeling, because you were going to drive for Ganassi.
Right.
With an awesome sponsor. I don't know if it was multi-year, but at least you had a year.
Yeah, I had a year, and that's all. I had a shot, right? Like, just
like
you were saying. You had a shot.
That's all, yeah. The same for me. You have a year. You have a year to prove yourself. Year, and they had an option on you.
Okay, so you go to Australia, you come back, you have, and continue to have, I will point out, an incredible career. Like, most successful IndyCar qualifier in history. I was there in Sonoma, watching the emotion on Liz's face, Laguna, when you got that record, watching the emotion on Liz's face, who's been there with you through thick and thin for, decades now. And you've won an Indy 500, you've had multiple championships. Off track, though, like 2023 was not a great year for Will Power. You talk about a speed bump, and and this time it was in Liz's health. What happened there, and how did that, change your mindset? I heard a couple of comments from you after you won an IndyCar race, after she was better, and she was in victory circle with you and your son. And how did that mindset affect you through the year, knowing how sick she was at home?
It affected me, even before the season in any preparation, but it just being unsure what was going to happen with Liz. She almost died. I was very close to dying there in the hospital, just because, once you get that infection, your blood just goes everywhere. And I had to have a major surgery on the back with all the rods and everything, to get the infection out of the spinal column. That, even when she's sitting there, when I'm sitting in hospital, I'm going to have to stop racing here, because if Liz doesn't make it, I don't want my son to have no parents, like it was really weighing on me. Like when she actually was getting better, she's back home. She's just, on these high potency antibiotic IVs, like PICC line to the heart IVs 3 times a day. Definitely thought a lot about whether I should be racing. Definitely weighed on my mind a lot. Actually the worst weekend was, let's say, start the season, but the worst weekend was Road America, where getting in the car, we were flying privately because, Liz couldn't go on a commercial flight with the chance of getting germs. So we're paying, like, it was very expensive to do that, but kind of had no choice. Just driving out of the driveway, and she says, "Oh, look at all the worms in that cup." And that was the same thing that happened when she started to get sick. She just started hallucinating, talking just absolute gibberish and just seeing things. And I'm like, oh no, she's got, the infection has come back. Yeah, that was their greatest fear. You got this plane waiting, we pay a lot of money for. Myself and Kathy, Liz's mother, who lives with us and helps look after Bo and so on, is looking after Liz. Said, you just go on the plane. I'll take her down to the hospital, or I'll monitor her at least, because as soon as she said that, I'm like, what did you say? Yeah, I still look at the worms in the. I'm like, oh, you don't have to. What are we going to do here? I mean, it's like you've got this infection again. But it turned out that she'd mixed medications in some way, and I think Kathy took her to the hospital. I think we just waited, let's just wait and see what's going on here. And turned out that she'd taken medication because she would have gone inside, checked the temperature, and so on and so on. Temperature wasn't up, so okay, no infection. But yeah, as soon as I got on that plane, it had Wi-Fi. I actually was able to FaceTime them. So I was talking to them on the plane, like, hey, is she still hallucinating? What's she doing? So that whole weekend was stressful, just waiting to see, is the temperature going up? Is she, what's she doing? Hang on, sorry. I got the kids coming down.
We love kids and dogs. We've had kids and dogs visit this podcast.
As soon as I'm done, we can get to play.
I'll let your daddy go shortly, Bo.
Sorry, man.
It's all good, man. Like, this is life, right? As racing drivers, as parents, so getting back into it, so you get on this plane to Road America, you're FaceTiming with Liz and with her mom, monitoring her health. You still get in the race car and have to go do your job, which is not easy and takes a lot of mental load to really commit to what it takes to be competitive in IndyCar. And then you come into 2024 and Liz's health is more stable. She's better. And I have to say, I think it was during the month of May this year, I talked to you at the casino night, and I talked to you at a couple other places. And I said to somebody, I said, well, who do you think's should be really good this year? And I said, oh man, Will Power's relaxed and happy. And if the rest of the grid's not nervous that Will Power's relaxed, they're not paying enough attention. Because when you are happy, when you're on, you talk championships and you got Scott Dixon's name, qualifying is your name, and you go back, you've got Mario and AJ and, some of the grades. But when you're really able to enjoy your racing, it's unbelievable what you can do, because even at your experience level, it's still obviously so much fun and what you love so much.
It is. I think the older you get, the more you realize how lucky you are to do it as a job. It's just, I love the craft. I've never stopped studying, never stopped working at it. Still learning, and just putting a race weekend together. There's nothing like it. Honestly, driving the best I ever have right now, just because I have a lot of experience, but I haven't really lost that top end speed. So enjoying it a lot. It's high pressure stuff in IndyCar. It really is. It's just, and that's just, that is the game, but you must enjoy it. It is hard sometimes, but you must try to tell us, because I never really enjoyed it when I was younger. I mean, I loved it, but I just had so much drive, passion for it. Put a lot of pressure on myself to perform, but I guess I do it in a nicer way now. But compared to the year before, man, night and day in preparation and focus. You just can't, in this field, in this series, it's so competitive. You cannot have a single distraction. Even this year, like just getting a cold, like being sick or whatever it was, COVID, whatever it is. At Mid-Ohio, you just simply can't perform at a good level. You just can't, man. Like you think, oh, I'm sick. I've raced well when I was sick before. You know, you're like, you're just running a couple tenths off. You're just not on it. You're just not on it. And you just, in this field, it's so bloody tough. If you have any distractions or anything that's, weighing on you, you just won't perform at your highest level. And if you're not performing at your highest level, you're going to struggle. You will.
Absolutely. We are very much grateful that Liz's health challenges are behind her and that speed bump is behind her. Now, on our podcast, we ask the same 3 questions to our guests. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire them at you here, Will. What's the best advice you've ever gotten and from whom?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I was saying my dad once, I was racing. It just is, I guess best advice for driving, I suppose, was, went out, did my first run. I was really quick at our home track and then went out again. And I said, I need to start trying. Went out, started trying, and like half second off. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like driving harder. He goes, just back everything up, back it up, slow and fast down. Went back straight to being fast again. So that was a good early career piece of advice for driving. Obviously built a lot on that now, but yeah. And I guess some of the best advice is the most simple things like, enjoy life. Something my mother would say, just enjoy it. And that's true. Very true.
And no better example of that than the last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So question number 2, what's your dream car and do you have it in your garage?
Dream car. My actual dream street car was a VL. It's a VL Commodore. It's in Australia. It's an Australian car. Yeah, if I was living in Australia and had a bit of money to spend, I would buy like a fully restored, nice VL Commodore Calais. They're actually a VL Calais Commodore 5-speed turbo.
I like it.
But I do have it's an F3000 car. It's called Formula Holden in Australia. It's around a Holden engine. Sitting in a garage, my neighbour's garage, just got some extractors made for it. I got sent over. Won that championship in 2002. So that was a pretty cool old 90s looking F1 car. That's what they look like. So look forward to restoring that and driving that thing.
That's awesome. Very cool. Now, finally, as athletes, we've had some really cool interactions. Hinge talked about getting the chance to meet like Lady Gaga, and Alison Millington talked about meeting Condoleezza Rice, some people like that. Who or what has been the coolest interaction that you would never have had if you weren't a racing driver?
There's a couple. I would say when I'd signed for Penske in 2009, or it might have been 2010, but I just was there by myself. And it was Lizzie, but Tim Cindric sent me a message. Hey, you want to go to dinner with Slash from Guns N' Roses? I was like, yeah. So I did that, and that was pretty cool. And then he called me actually when I was in hospital. So it must have been 2009. It was 2009 because he called me in hospital. And then the other one is Flavor Flav. I was a big fan of Flavor Flav when I was younger. Yeah, he came to the Detroit race, and now we're really good friends. He's going to come to the last round. So hanging out with Flavor Flav, pretty surreal. Boy from Toowoomba, sitting there listening to Public Enemy, and then end up meeting Flavor Flav and becoming friends with him.
And I'll tell you, Will, like Flavor Flav's a huge Will Power fan, and not just at the racetrack. And I know I texted you about this, but after he came to Detroit this year, I think it was, and came to the Indy 500, I happened to be in Las Vegas for the jewelry show for some of the other business stuff we do. And I see him walking to the Sirius XM studio wearing an Indy 500 jacket and a Will Power hat at the Flavor Flav angle with a flag, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool to see you have such a great hype man.
Yeah. Oh, couldn't have wished for a better hype man. I just can't believe it, man. Like, that is the people from my hometown and the other brothers. They're just like, dude, you've made it. Like, because when we were a teenager, he was so big. It's such a big deal. He's like, yeah, just forget about racing, hanging out with Flavor Flav. So
Leave
It's
it to
kind
your
of,
brother to put the right perspective on it.
yeah,
Well,
no, that's pretty cool, man.
yeah, it's awesome. Will, thank you for the time. I know it's busy and you've got your family and Liz and Bo, plus racing commitments. Appreciate the time, and we'll see you at the racetrack, and best of luck.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.